A young woman went missing on March 9th of 1979, only to be found dead 5 days later. Her body had been dumped near a state park. It would be nearly 5 decades before her case was solved. This is the case of Janie Landers. Janie Landers was 18 years old at the time of her disappearance. However, she struggled with both mental disabilities and behavioral complications, and overall she functioned at about the level of an 8-year-old. Now, because of this, she needed to live in the Fairview Training Center in Salem, Oregon. Now, it was March 9th of 1979 when Janie went missing. Witnesses said that they had seen her speaking to a man outside the facility and that she eventually got into the car with him. It was a golden yellow sedan. Now, when she did not return later, she was reported missing and the search began. It was 5 days later that her body had been found dumped near the Silver Falls State Park. An autopsy later revealed that Janie had died of blunt force trauma to the head and that she had both stab wounds and defensive wounds to her body. There was no crime scene and very little evidence to work with other than the clothes that Janie had been wearing. The case went cold, but Janie's sister kept it alive the best she could. Joyce Hooper was only 13 years old when her sister Janie was murdered. Now, over the next few decades, she continued to ask the Oregon State Police to reopen Janie's case and to take another look, see if they could find something new. It was again reopened in 2015. Now, Detective Steve Hinkle was assigned to the case. Thankfully, he was just the man for the job. Now, he realized that the wounds on Janie's body in the photos from the autopsy were missing a key element. Typically, a knife with a hilt is going to leave abrasions around the wound where the knife has been inserted into the person's body and that hilt has been forcefully pushed against the skin. Now, Janie's wounds were missing this very key element, so a knife without a hilt is far more likely to cause the person using that knife to cut their hand. And so, Hinkle decided to send off Janie's clothing for DNA analysis. In April of 2016, the results came back. DNA on Janie's shirt matched Gerald Kenneth Dunlap. Now, Dunlap had been convicted and sentenced to life in prison for raping a woman during a robbery of a laundromat, of all places, and this was in 1961, but he was released after only 12 years in 1973. He was released on parole, and he moved a few times after this. He was sent to prison again in 1996 for sexually abusing a family member of his who was also a minor. So as it turns out, Dunlap was working at the Fairview Training Center at the time of Janie's disappearance. And he continued working there until about 1983 when he was fired for inappropriate behavior with women. Hinkle was able to match up the time that Dunlap worked at Fairview Training Center. He was able to match up his picture from about that time in 1979 to what the sketch looked like from eyewitnesses on the day that Janie went missing. He had a similar car to the car that it was described that Janie had gotten into that day, and he was able to line up a lot of information to definitely corroborate that it was Dunlap who had committed the murder. Detective Hinkle was finally able to let Janie's family know that he had found her killer. Unfortunately, Dunlap had died in 2002 while still in prison. So while Janie's family had answers, they did not get to see justice carried out in Janie's case. Now, Joyce said that even though Dunlap had died in prison, she was just happy that he wasn't out there and able to hurt anyone else. So while this case is now solved, I still can't help but wonder why Dunlap decided to do this and why he picked Janie in the first place. But we will never know these answers, and I wonder how come coworkers didn't realize that it was Dunlap's car, especially as some had confided in Hinkle that during his recent investigation of the case, Dunlap was known to wait after work when he got off at the bus stop and to give patients rides. So I just don't know how they weren't able to make that connection in the case to Dunlap sooner. But of course, cases are hardly ever perfect. The important thing is that it was solved. Now, the last things that I can't help but think about are the fact that if Dunlap had not been paroled from his life sentence after only 12 years, he would have never been able to hurt Janie. And if criminal records had been more reliable and more accessible during this time period, he may have never been hired at Fairfax, and he would have never crossed Janie's path to begin with. Thankfully, and most importantly, Janie's family now knows who murdered her, and they can take comfort in the fact that he can no longer hurt anyone else ever again. So thank you for watching today's video, and if you enjoyed it, please don't forget to check out my other videos as well and click that subscribe button down below. Every other Monday, I like to review true crime books, and on Wednesdays, I cover unsolved cases, and on Fridays, I cover cases that are either more popular or already solved. Please remember to stay respectful in the comments down below, and you can always find my sources for each and every video pinned to the very top of the comments section of each video. I hope that you all have a very good day, and I will see you guys again next week for more videos. Bye, everyone.